You know, I was hoping to go record shopping in Vancouver with Khalil Rountree before his fight with Chris Daukaus, but it got postponed, and now we're here in August. You're fighting at the UFC Apex. Were you disappointed that you didn't get to travel to the Great White North for that one?
I was excited to be able to go to Vancouver for sure. And yeah, a little bit disappointed that it got postponed, but that just means that, next when I go to Vancouver, I get to go more of like a vacation.
Well, that's the place to go, but make sure you go at this time of year. You don't want to go in like October or November to Vancouver. Just a friendly tip from a Canadian.
Noted. Noted.
Unless you like the rain. If you like the rain, then definitely go in November.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it, but I'd probably prefer to go like when you said when it's nice and the weather's good.
Well, we would have loved to have you, but of course your matchup with Chris Duck is now this coming weekend. Now Chris is moving down to 205. Is it difficult to get a read on somebody who's used to fighting heavyweights versus light heavyweights, considering the divisions are so different in terms of the stylistic matchups that you see?
I don't know. I mean, like I don't think that I don't think that I've ever fought anybody that was coming down. Um, I guess I won't know if it's difficult to get a read until we step in the cage.
I think that's a very valid point. You know, I was asked about this fight earlier today, and I said it's tough to really know what to make of it because we haven't really seen Chris Dawkins do his thing at 205 pounds with that kind of frame. It's just a very very different sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. But come Saturday, I mean, we'll have all the answers.
Now, I know you're not a big fan of necessarily talking about fighting and your fights, so why don't we talk about what you've been up to this past year? What's been capturing your attention outside of training?
The only thing I've really been up to this year is just training. After the last fight, I took a little bit of a break, and around February, I came back to Las Vegas and started training for a fight. I didn't know when I would get the call, but I started a training camp, just as if, a fight would be coming in, 4 or 6 weeks. So that's this year's focus has really just been expanding, learning new tools, working on my grappling, just sharpening things and just growing, really preparing myself you know, to elevate. The goal is to be a contender, and like we figured, like okay, if we want to get there, we got a lot of work to do. So that's been the focus this year.
How do you avoid burnout? I mean, you mentioned you started a camp in February, so for all intents and purposes, are you talking about like a full training camp as if you were going to be fighting somebody that's been going on for like 5 months or whatever it is?
Yeah, 100%. I'd say as far as like avoiding burnout, I think that I just decided to just change my lifestyle and embrace, the fact that, I'm a professional athlete, and, this isn't a long lasting career. So for the time being, I'm just going to dedicate myself to this. And so with that mindset switch and the lifestyle change, um, it doesn't necessarily feel like burnout, like I don't really have my mind set on doing much else, um, or living just kind of like you know, going out and eating whatever I want or whatever. It's just I've just submitted to this is what I do for now, and I think that's what helped with not having the feeling of burnout.
And are you happy doing that? I mean, obviously you want to maximize your potential in the sport, like you said. Maybe happiness isn't on the table for the next couple of years while you try to do that. But how are you feeling compared to perhaps a year ago when you might have been a little bit looser with your training regimen?
I think that there's a big there's a different type of happiness. Yeah, I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with how I feel. I'm happy with the results that I'm able to, put out on a daily, weekly basis when I do my, end of the week check in and, you know, check with myself like, okay, how was my effort this week and what did I progress on and where's the growth happening? So there's a lot of happiness there, which, creates um, a bit more of it's good for my self esteem for sure. Um, I'd say compared to last year or the year before, where um, that happiness was a little bit different. Like I was able to, bounce back and forth between New York and getting experiences in the city and seeing new things and meeting new people and So the happiness, it's still there. I'm happy, but it's just it's in different places.
Your last fight, I feel like a lot of people didn't agree with the decision. I'm on the other side of that. I felt like you did win that fight based on the scoring criteria, but I don't
Yeah.
think enough people know the scoring criteria and what to look for because people are pointing out stats and you got outstruck, which doesn't really matter when you're comparing impact versus volume. But how
Mhm.
did you react when you saw that a lot of people felt perhaps that you didn't deserve the decision that you got in your last fight against Dustin Jacoby?
How did I react? I mean, it it was a bit frustrating. It was a bit frustrating in a way, but I knew for myself that it's like when you look at damage and significant strikes and things like that, I think that that kind of it shows it shows a bit more. How do I say it? Like, I guess an analogy that I tried to make was like, if you got two guys, with the same size axe trying to chop down a tree, one guy hits the tree 140 times, one guy hits the tree 50 times, which tree has more damage? Who actually won the race to chopping down the tree? You got what I mean? And that's kind of how I looked at it. I think that, yeah, my strikes did more damage. Um, I think that I held the cage, cage control more. Um, yeah, so a lot of the times it really doesn't matter, and I try not to pay attention to what people say because that's just what like pisses me off. So yeah, I think that it was the right decision for sure.
Yeah, and how do you balance that? Like trying to stay away from those kind of opinions after a fight, because obviously we all want feedback in our lives to see what people thought of how we performed in any given circumstance. So what do you do to kind of quiet that angry voice from the internet that's coming from that corner that don't really understand why you won that fight?
Um, Man, a lot of the times I think that it's just talking to, people who are close to me, whose opinions and input I value, and just talking with them about it, because I think talking to the internet about anything is just like, you might as well just, send yourself down a black hole. So as long as I have, just good counsel and just people who I respect, like those are the people who I talk to. So that helps me balance things, whether it's like, coaches or people who have experience in the sport, or, yeah, people that I know have a solid understanding of what's happening in there, and I'll take my conversations to them and, try to balance it out that way, because I I'm not a fan of the internet.
So is getting a fight now is what, like 8 months later? Have you really been eager to get back in there to kind of get rid of those thoughts from after that last fight?
That's never crossed my mind. I don't really have a lot of thoughts about the last fight and, like, getting rid of those thoughts or anything like that. It's a whole new challenge. It's a whole new fight, and yeah, I've just been preparing myself to climb the ranks and to be ready for the next challenge. So that's really my only focus.
I was on your Linktree page, and the very top link was a song that you put together called "Go Everywhere." That's on
Yeah,
SoundCloud. Tell me about that and dabbling in music a little bit. I know you've always been a big music fan, but now creating
yeah.
some music.
I forgot that that was up there. Yeah, so I'd say around. I started just. I got a music itch like around the last camp, like midway through. It was another one of the things that, like, I had changed up my lifestyle. Just kind of started dedicating more time to training, not really going out, hanging out much. So, yeah, I was just like, okay, what am I going to do with my free time? And so, yeah, I just like hooked back up my music equipment and just like plugged my guitar into Logic on my laptop and just kind of started making music, and not even really writing. It was more of a process of like, plug in, headphones on, guitar plugged in, lay a riff, lay the drums, just kind of freestyle some vocals, and just like a form of expression. And then I figured like, oh, why not just put it out there? It's me, it's who I am, it's what I do, and it doesn't have to be like polished and studio recorded. Just something that, yeah, just something that just kind of a bug that was like a itch that I had to scratch, and yeah.
Is that something that happens kind of after every fight that you have, as you kind of need to channel that creative part of your brain to get back to the fighting part of your brain after a little bit of time away?
In the past, that's definitely been the case. I think that a lot of my yeah, I have a lot of creative energy, and after the fight, yeah, I definitely look for ways to let that out and channel that. Um, yeah, I'm curious to see you know what's next creatively um, after this fight, if anything, because I'd imagine that the way things have been going, after this fight, I'll probably go just right back into another training camp preparing for whatever's next because, yeah, light heavyweight division right now. Um, I don't like to say that it's open because a lot of people use that term like, oh, light heavyweight division's open. It's like, no, but I think that there are some avenues that are, you know, um, I guess like easier to take if that makes sense.
All right, Khalil, thanks so much for doing this with me. I appreciate you, and best of luck this Saturday.
No problem. Talk to you soon.